comes to terms or struggles to come to terms with the horrific aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. The country is united across political lines, across regions, because as Omar Abdullah said in an emotional speech in a special session of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly today, there is no part of India that has been left untouched by what we saw take place, the targeted killings of unarmed civilians targeted for their religion. Nothing like this has been seen in more than 2 decades. It is quite clear, and the Prime Minister has signaled unequivocally that India will, quote unquote, chase those who did this till the ends of the earth. It's a message he repeated over the weekend when he said that the blood of every Indian is boiling. These statements from the Prime Minister, from the Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister, from members of the opposition have come even as Pakistan continues to make brazen threats, including a nuclear threat that came accompanied with a communal and a casteist slur. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo Story. Our relentless focus on the aftermath of the Kashmir terror attack continues. We're looking at what shape and form India's reaction may take. It's quite clear that all options, kinetic and non-kinetic, simply put, non-military and military, are on the table. We have already seen the signaling of this with the unprecedented move by India to suspend the Indus Water Treaty till Pakistan stops backing and promoting terrorism. In the meantime, Pakistan's minister has made an open nuclear threat, saying that their missiles are not for placing in a museum. As Pakistan makes these threats from Kashmir is an inflection point. We have seen moving images like you see on your screen of Kashmiri local heroes who came to the rescue of tourists. You see Adil Hussain on your screen. You see Sajjad Bhatt. These are names that we should know. One of them was sprayed with bullets at a pony wala as he tried to save tourists. Another, a shawl wala, you'll see him in the next image, respond plea for help, and his image of running down the mountains with an injured tourist on his back has gone viral. Pakistan's clear attempt is to drive a religious wedge between the Hindus and Muslims of India. The attack has come just days after Asim Munir's rather unhinged and communal speech. As Prime Minister Modi promises that this time the response will be unimaginable, what shape and form might that take? India has begun global outreach with diplomats across the world, taking them into confidence and setting the stage for a response that India is arguing should end this once and for all. What might that response be? Let's introduce our guest. That's the Indian Navy releasing images of its anti-ship surface missiles being fired. I want to welcome to the program General K.S. Dhillon, otherwise known as Tiny Dhillon. We know him as a military commander, a former general officer commanding of the 15 Corps in the Kashmir Valley, and of course the author of many best-selling books. It's good to have you with us on the program, sir. Joining me from the United States of America today is Lisa Curtis. Lisa leads the Indo-Pacific Security Program at CNAS and has also served in the US government and with the Trump administration. Lisa, it's good to see you after a long time. And also joining me is a veteran diplomat, Ambassador Majid Puri. Always a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Before I open this up for first comments, I just want to play out for you a special session of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly has been called. The Chief Minister, Omar Abdullah, made an extremely emotional speech, looking up several times and making the point that nothing like this has been seen for 21 years. Take a look.
Speaker साहब, उत्तर से लेके दक्षिण, पूरब से लेके पश्चिम, कहां अरुणाचल, कहां गुजरात, कहां जम्मू कश्मीर, कहां केरला और बीच की सारी रियासतें, पूरा मुल्क इस हमले के लपेट में आया है। ये सही है स्पीकर साहब, ये पहला हमला नहीं था। हमने कई हमले होते हुए देखे। हमने अमरनाथ यात्रा के कैंप पे हमले होते हुए देखे। हमने डोडा के मुख्तलिफ गांवों पे हमले होते हुए देखे। हमने कश्मीरी पंडितों के बस्तियों पे हमले होते हुए देखे। हमने सरदारों के बस्तियों पे हमले होते हुए देखे, लेकिन एक बीच का ऐसा वक्त आया था, ये बाईसरन का हमला 21 साल के बाद इतना बड़ा हमला हुआ है सिविलियन।
Omar Abdullah there making the point that a terror attack like this has not been seen for more than 2 decades, and there is no part of India that has not received a body bag from Kerala to Kashmir, from Haryana to Karnataka, and therefore there is a sense that there's something very different about this moment than we have seen before. Let me bring in first reactions. General Dhillon, I'll start with you. Obviously, we are quite clear now, the signaling has come from the very top that there is going to be retaliation. There is going to be, the perpetrators brought to justice. We are seeing action in the Kashmir Valley in terms of search operations, explosions, bringing down the homes of established terrorists. But beyond that, without discussing anything operational, what do you think is different about this moment? What do you think India might be looking at? What do you think the military establishment might be focusing on, given that whatever India does will have to be different and perhaps bigger, perhaps longer lasting than the responses we saw in the aftermath of the Uri terror strike and the Pulwama terror strike? And you have, of course, been there on the ground and you have seen this led from the front. General Tiny Dhillon, do go ahead.
Ma'am, your main question as to what it is different this time and how it's going to be, our response is going to be different. I mean, both the incidents which you talked about, that is the surgical strikes after Uri and Balakot strikes after Pulwama, both those were only purely military options which were taken. Now, this time, it's going to be a national response, and when the nations take a response against a belligerent country, it is a whole of nation approach which includes military options, diplomatic options, political options, economic options, and certain other things which we don't generally talk about. Now, few initiatives or few incidents of diplomatic options have already come to the table in terms of held in abeyance of Indus Water Treaty, cutting down on the embassy staff, calling back of the defense advisors, in addition to certain visa regulations. Now, economic options, political options, and military options. Now, this time it has to be a combination of all this, and military options are not going to be restricted to only one sector, in my view, because this time it has to be a longer lasting impact on Pakistan, and Pakistan of today is different from Pakistan of 2019 or 2016. Pakistan is in bigger trouble economically, politically, militarily, and diplomatically. Hence, it will be difficult for Pakistan to face the type of response which India will give. And the point you made about Pakistani Chief Hasib Munir and his rhetoric, there are two things which he said. One thing he said was Kashmir is a jugular vein. And second thing, he talked about Hindus and Muslims being two different entities and one is better than the other. Those two things only played out after 5 to 7 days in Pahalgam. It happened in Kashmir when Kashmir tourist season was about to start and the Kashmir valley was full of tourists. The locals were earning their livelihood. And second thing which he talked about Hindus and Muslims, the terrorists segregated Hindus based on religion and shot them in cold blood in front of the children, in front of their wives, in front of the sisters and kith and kin. Now, this type of incident, this type of gruesome incident has never happened in the history of Kashmiri terrorism in the past, where you kill innocent civilians based on religion in front of their wives and children. That's what makes it different, and that's why the response of Prime Minister in his statement so far has been absolutely of the top quality which a nation should respond. So in my opinion, this time it's not going to be purely military. It is going, we have diplomats on a panel. It's going to be a combination of all the comprehensive national power which will be applied on the Pakistan as a terrorist nation.
Right. And before I come to Ambassador Puri for more on that, I think you're absolutely correct. We're seeing even veteran diplomats talk about how it is perhaps a moment for India to officially support the Baluchistan separatist movement, perhaps another Bangladesh moment. I have heard this being considered very, very seriously. The Indus Water Treaty, of course, that suspension, though it will take time to actualize, but that suspension has never happened before, notwithstanding 4 wars between India and Pakistan, including Kargil. Let me bring in Lisa Curtis. Lisa, this is a region that you know well. There is a sense that the West is underestimating the depths of rage in India, has not perhaps fully taken cognizance of the fact that there's been very specific religious targeting, and that India has joined the dots of this religious targeting. Civilians killed basically after ascertaining that they're not Muslim. And there's a sense that the West is looking away and not understanding what's actually going on here. Do you think that this horror has not been fully processed in governments around the world, or do you think that it's slowly sinking in, that we stand at an inflection point?
Well, I don't think I've seen that the United States is looking away. I think that there has been a lot of solidarity and unity expressed with India over this horrific terrorist attack. I think U.S. officials are fully aware of the implications of what has happened. I think they recognize the anger, the horror in India, and that India is justified in wanting to retaliate against this horrific terrorist act. So I don't see that the United States is not paying attention. I think what may be happening is the United States has a lot on its plate right now. There is the war in the Ukraine, there is the Middle East, there is the tariff trade war with China. So there is just a lot happening domestically in the United States. And so probably from the Trump administration perspective, this is one more crisis that, they will need to be dealing with. But I think also we've heard from President Trump's comments that he sees this as, India's choice, how India wants to respond. And he did not, give the sense that the U.S. was going to try to take a large role in getting involved in this situation. But frankly, when you look back at past India-Pakistan crises, we've had many over the last 25 years. You have seen that the U.S. has been involved behind the scenes. It has played a role in helping to de-escalate the situation. And we've seen the pattern. There's some kind of terrorist attack in India. Usually the fingers point back to Pakistan, where we have seen support for groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and others. And it looks like the resistance front is just a front for Lashkar-e-Taiba. So in this case as well, the finger is going back to Pakistan. So I think, there is strong support for India, but there is also the recognition that both countries are nuclear armed states, and that once you start up the escalation ladder, the situation gets very unpredictable. And I don't think anybody wants to see a nuclear conflict break out in the subcontinent. So,
Yeah.
Sorry. At the same time, there is also a recognition that we've been here before. We've seen these kind of crises, and there's a sense that we don't want this to get out of control.
Yeah, I should clarify that when I said there's a sense that the world or the West or America is looking away. Of course, I recognize that we've seen some strong statements of solidarity from Tulsi Gabbard, among others. So I recognize that, but I think that there is something different in the sentiment of India that makes us different from moments in history we've been at before. That's what I feel. I could be looking at this very much as an Indian. But Lisa, there's one other thing briefly I want you to comment on. About 25 years ago, when I was a young reporter, Bill Clinton came to India and we saw 36 Sikhs being massacred in Chittisingpura. This time, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was here, and it happens on that day. This is an old terrorist playbook to try and get American attention, international attention, to try and quote unquote internationalize Kashmir. But the world has changed, America has changed, and India has changed since then. And I think those are important things to recognize. Do you see those dots connecting, Vance being here, the terrorists trying to get attention, Pakistan trying to get, for the Trump administration to look its way. There is something about the timing.
I agree. I think it's eerily similar to the 2000 attack against the Sikhs when former President Clinton was visiting India. I think, I can see why Indians are drawing this comparison. I also think it's highly suspicious that the Pakistan Chief of Army Staff, Asim Munir, made this extremely provocative speech just a week before the attack, where he talked about Kashmir being Pakistan's jugular vein. He talked about two-nation theory and how different Hindus and Muslims are. Really language that throws back to the 1990s. This kind of rhetoric that we would hear from Pakistan, 25 years ago. But as you say, things are much different. India, has moved forward. India now has the fastest growing economy, fifth largest economy in the world, one of the most powerful militaries. It's a key partner of the United States. The United States is looking to India to be a counterweight to China. And I think that Pakistan, if it is going back to this 1990s playbook, really is mistaken, and I think would really see negative consequences if that is in fact what we are seeing. But I would just note that during the Biden administration, I think Pakistan felt largely ignored. I think they, were hoping to have a better relationship with the Trump administration, hoping to get some more attention. We did see they held a critical minerals conference just a couple weeks ago. A senior official from the State Department attended that. But I think that this will impact very negatively the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. And if there were any hopes for some kind of, better relationship, more engagement, I think this attack has set that back for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take that to Ambassador Puri. From a diplomatic perspective, we heard General Tiny Dhillon saying that, look, this is going to be a whole of government approach. This is going to be military, non-military, the whole shebang, right? The Indus Water Treaty suspension is a big one, but it will take some time to actualize it, some time for it to be converted into real consequences. Though I learned from experts that even if India decides to withhold data sharing, that in itself can hit where it hurts. Ambassador Puri, at the moment, as the outreach begins with capitals across the world, what will be the focus of Indian diplomats?
Barkha, thank you very much. I've heard with much attention both of what my panelists have had to say. First, I want to point out to you, one Nepali national has also lost his life. I think just for us to be very clear that there is an international ramification. Look, there should be no doubt in anybody's mind, at least certainly not in India, but I think nowhere in the world, that this is the outcome of actions from the other side of our border. There should be absolutely no doubt about it. It's not just handiwork and some little footprints and fingerprints. They have orchestrated it. What they've done, why they've done, I firmly believe that a changed India, a changed local situation, and a playbook from the 1990s certainly not on, and it needs to be tackled. I agree with General Saab very much that, it has to be a much more robust whole of government approach, no doubt about that. But I also agree with Lisa that the biggest power in the world is very busy with other things. And in various ways, Lisa, you will agree with me that while some people have said a lot, some of the comments at the very top, leave you certainly with the thoughts which Barkha has mentioned, that, you are occupied with other things, because that kind of even attention to minutiae and detail have been missing and so on. But let me leave that aside. To start with Barkha, the Security Council has strongly condemned the act. That's the first step. This is despite the fact that Pakistan is a member of the Security Council, and of course the Chinese are sitting there. Despite that, they had nothing to say on the matter. Secondly, please note that they're going around telling people that, we are willing to have some kind of joint investigation, this, that. each of these simply points to the fact that they know that the finger is very strongly pointed in their direction and there's a degree of global cornering. Look at this. All political leaders from all over the world have called up the Prime Minister, have made statements, and I, of course, can talk about, including people who we may not have thought of. The Iranian president, several of the others have turned around and said, everybody is one, that you just cannot go about shooting civilians in an indiscriminate manner in this kind after ascertaining religion and so on and so forth. This is just not on for this time of and day and age of the world. Absolutely not. And so we have a huge amount of global support. You know, we've taken some actions which were absolutely necessary to do. The Indus Valley Indus Valley Waters Treaty, for example. You mentioned very rightly, of course, it's a physical civil engineering thing. It takes time. But, you know, it was necessary for the people of India to think that the government of India is taking some major action which can have an impact on Pakistan, its people, its economy, and therefore the military. It was important. We all know, people who are in the thinking people, they all know. This business about talking about nuclear, you know, look, Pakistan's been a nuclear-armed country as long as we have been. We know it. Let's leave that aside. We know what has to be done in terms of both keeping ourselves safe, in terms of taking out whatever needs to be done at that end. Let me leave all of that out. I do think, however, that there will be a need for some kind of action which the people in India can see palpably. And I'm afraid, partly as a result of the success of the surgical strikes and Balakot, this sort of demand within the country is also a risen factor. Now, this is the way politics plays out.
Yeah.
This is the way domestic reactions are. But let's be very clear, the whole of India, and I'm glad Chief Minister Omar Abdullah said it, the whole of India not just gets impacted. If you look at where the people came from, every single state has been impacted. It's not just that, but the whole of India in its conscience has been absolutely shaken as to what has happened. And this is not a war kind of thing, conflict. You went to hit a military base or an air force base, nothing. You went and targeted absolutely unarmed civilians who were enjoying. And what were they doing? They were adding to the economy of your so-called beloved Kashmir. And the Kashmiris were benefiting. Look at the outcome in Kashmir. People are anguished. They have suffered all this while. And if I dare say, they will be the greatest sufferers of this kind of act by these people who claim to be standing on their side. No. Woe be to such friendships.
Yeah, I think you've said it better than I was trying to say. That maybe what I was trying to say was that the world is looking at this as a moment that is, you know, that we've been in before, and we as Indians are feeling like this is this inflection point. Now, there's just something about this. It's visceral. It's gut wrenching. You know, and to see women being forced to watch their husbands being executed. We had 4 new brides' honeymoons turned into funerals. It is just horrific to watch. And I think the other thing I would like to stress at this point is political unity. India doesn't stand, India's politicians squabble on most things. They are not squabbling right now. And I want to play out for you Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor is a Congress leader. He's the head of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs. He has used the phrase, blood will flow, because that is what Pakistan has, that's the moment, that's the point to which Pakistan has brought us to. Take a look.
After Pulwama, there was the Balakot airstrike. Now today, I think we're going to see something more than that. You do not ask a murderer to investigate his own murders. The Pakistanis have to understand that they cannot kill Indians with impunity. But if you do something to us, then be prepared for a response. Blood is going to flow. I'm sorry to say, it will flow possibly more on their side than on ours.
So that is the response of the opposition. General Dhillon, I want to bring you in. This reference of a so-called investigation, when Shashi Tharoor says that you cannot rob our home and then say, okay, you be part of the investigation, is of course a reference to Pakistan's claim that let's have a so-called quote-unquote neutral investigation. My question to you is this: when you said it's a whole of government approach, I think we're talking about entering a phase of war, whatever you call it. what has happened to us is an act of war, and how India will respond will be similar. Are we looking, as Ambassador Puri pointed out, at something quite different from Balakot or surgical strikes, which were episodic and then life moved on? We built on the gains of that. There was massive normalcy, massive electoral participation in Jammu and Kashmir, and life went on. Now we are entering a different kind of conflict management, something between war and peace, but more like war and certainly not like peace. General Hillen?
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. In Uri and in Pulwama, the target was security establishment, security forces personnel. And when it comes to targeting a security force personnel, even if it is jihad or it's a liberation war or whatever it is different than targeting innocent civilians based on religion and the gruesome murder. These are cold-blooded murders of people in front of the children and their wives and kith and kin. So it is different. And like Chief Minister of J&K said, it has touched the conscience of each and every Indian. And this time, and as it is, the social media and the connected world or the internet has expanded many times ever since 2016 and 2019. The visuals have gone to each and everyone's house, each and everyone's laptop, each and everyone's mobile. So the voices for a revenge or a concrete action are rising very high. And like this time, it's not going, like I said earlier, it's not going to be only a military response. It's going to be a combination response, and it's going to be a lasting response. And government is now, since Prime Minister is already committed to it, there is no way of going back from that statement. And it is just a matter of time and place of India's choosing, and as to where we hit and with what all we hit.
Yeah.
And talking about the Indus Water Treaty, Ambassador Puri has very elaborately told it. Even if we take time to build capabilities within India to store and divert water, which may take few years, even at today's time, if we don't share the water data and we don't share what all is going to happen, and we release water in spurts, that means suppose just 200 gallons is supposed to be released every day. You don't release it for 20 days and suddenly one fine day you release 4,000 gallons. Once your holding capacity is full. Now that 4,000 gallons is not going to be of any use to Pakistan, but only cause devastation. And next time we release it after 15 days. So this is how water as a weapon can be very effectively used against Pakistan. And one point we should not miss out. Pakistan is controlled by Punjabi Pakistani Musliman. And if we see the upper three rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, the water of which is flowing into Pakistan as per the Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan more or less remains below these three rivers. And the grain of country in the subcontinent is northeast to southwest. That means the rivers will start from Ladakh, Himachal, Punjab, Upper Punjab, and go down to western part of Sindh. And if these upper three rivers, where Pakistan had made link canals, one from Marala Headworks, one from Bambanwala, coming to Ravi Siphon, Bediya Link Canal, and Marala Ravi Link Canal, it is taking water from the upper rivers and putting it in the Ravi River, which flows along Lahore, to feed its Punjab province. And now if there is no water in the upper rivers, Punjab province will dry out. And in the long run, once we are able to control better in a more effective water in more effective manner, it is the Punjab which is going to be most impacted. And Punjabi Pakistani Musliman is not interested in Pathan of KPK or Baloch of Balochistan or Sindhi of Sindh or Kashmiri of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So it is going to hurt where it pains the most. So very effective step taken by the government on diplomatic side.
Yes, and I like the way you explained that even if, building the infrastructure will take time, there are ways to calibrate, including not sharing data. I want to also talk a little bit about, and I don't think this is necessarily appreciated by Western media, how Kashmir has responded. I've been reporting on from Kashmir for 30 years, and I have never seen what we're seeing on the ground in Kashmir, the absolute mass protests in Kashmir, all walks of life, all political parties coming out and saying this is unacceptable. Among the protesters, one of them broke down in tears and another used the Hindi word in darindo ko saza honi chahiye, punish these animals. Take a look.
मेरी बहनों का यहाँ पे कत्लेआम किया, किन दरिंदों ने किया हमें नहीं पता। हम उसी दुख में शामिल हैं।
क्या अपील करेंगे आप?
हम यही अपील करते हैं, पहले जो इंसानियत का यहाँ पे कत्ल हुआ है, हम उसके खिलाफ हैं। हम इन दरिंदों के खिलाफ हैं। यहाँ पे इनोसेंट किलिंग हुई है, हम न ये देखना चाहते हैं कभी, न ये सुनना चाहते हैं। हम वक्त की गवर्नमेंट से गुजारिश करते हैं, इन दरिंदों को पकड़े और कड़ी से कड़ी सजा मिले। हमारा पहले इंसानियत का कत्ल हुआ, हमारा शरीयत, हमारा कुरान बोलता है कि इंसान का कत्ल करना तमाम इंसानियत का कत्ल हो जाता है। इसलिए हम इसके खिलाफ हैं। हमारी यही गुजारिश रहेगी, पहले इंसानियत का कत्ल हुआ, दूसरा जो हमारा रोजी रोटी वो हिट हुआ है, जो हमारा परिवार चलता था, जिससे हम कमाते थे, हमारा परिवार चलता था, वो अब खत्म हुआ। हमारा जो रोजगार वो मुतासिर हुआ। हम सब जो लोग हैं, घोड़े वाले तबके से वाबस्ता है, होटल वालों से वाबस्ता है, एटीवी वालों से वाबस्ता है, गाड़ी वालों से वाबस्ता है, जो भी हैं वो सब टूरिज्म के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है। चाहे होटल वाला है, चाहे घोड़े वाला है, चाहे गाड़ी वाला है। आप देखिए जो यहाँ पहलगाम में अभी शटडाउन है, ये वहाँ का मातम नहीं है, ये हमारे पूरे फैमिली में, पूरे घरों में मातम छाया हुआ है। हम तबाह हुए हैं, हमारा फ्यूचर तबाह हुआ है, हम कुछ किसी के लायक नहीं रहे हैं। हमने कोशिश की थी, मगर वो कोशिश एक तरह की नाकाम।
These are unprecedented images from the Kashmir Valley, and they are every day. They're absolutely organic. That very emotional protester there saying that our lives have been destroyed. We have been destroyed. The Quran says killing one man is the killing of humanity. Please punish these animals. The protester next to him breaking down. Our livelihoods are gone. We have been destroyed. Lisa Curtis, this is a very different India, but it's also a very different Kashmir Valley. And it is a Kashmir Valley that had got accustomed to more than a semblance, I would say, of improved security conditions that allowed people to flourish. This was peak tourist season. You couldn't get a room. I mean, and you can see these images that speak for themselves. My question to you is also to reflect a little bit about China. China has historically blocked India's resolutions against groups like the Jamaat-e-Dawa, which are the political fronts for the Lashkar. China this time too has made some noises about, oh, we support Pakistan in asking for an investigation. India will, of course, reject that. But China has never actually got involved in a military sense, not even in Kargil. China has. And the other important thing is that the Modi government has opened its own process of rapprochement with the Chinese. So I want you to sort of look at the geopolitics around this and talk about how they may play out, picking up from what you're hearing from our Indian panelists about how strong and deep the anger is this time.
Yes, let me first address the issue of how Kashmiris are reacting to this terrorist attack, because I think that's very important. And I think it's important, like you said, for people in the West, for people in the United States to understand this. I think there's often this, misperception that somehow, there's a Kashmir dispute between India and Pakistan that needs to be resolved, or that the international community needs to get involved in. And I think this is really a misreading of the current situation. And I think what we see is, like you said, we had seen a Kashmir that, has been normalizing over really the last 20 years. I can remember, the elections back in 2002, which brought the PDP to power. And then you've had a series of elections happening. But then these periodic terrorist attacks, often sponsored, from Pakistan. So I think the issue that people need to focus on is the issue of Pakistan-supported terrorism. And, that should be what the United States, the Western world, are focusing on. It's not the time to talk about, we need a long-term resolution to the Kashmir dispute, taking this back to the UN, thinking about some kind of international role. This is really not the time to be talking about that. So my hope is that people in the United States do hear loud and clear from the Kashmiris their aversion, their anger over this attack, and that the West will react accordingly. On the issue of China, I think you're right. China largely stays neutral during these times of tension between India and Pakistan. However, I think if we go back all the way to the Kargil crisis in 1999, what we saw is China played a relatively helpful role, I think, in using its influence with Pakistan to convince Pakistani troops from pulling back from that crisis. It really was a border conflict. More recently, in 2019, I don't think China played a particularly helpful role, and one could argue that they intervened in a way that was not helpful and contributed to escalating the situation. So we've yet to see how China will react in this situation. My sense is that China also feels there is so much happening in the world, so much instability. They're not comfortable with all of this instability and chaos that is happening. And so I think they would want to play a very neutral role. They would not want to see things escalate. And so, we've yet to see fully how they'll respond. But my sense is they're not going to want to, back either side per se. I think they are going to call for restraint and want to see the situation calm down as much as possible. It just doesn't serve their interests right now to have this level of tension and potential conflict in South Asia.
Yeah. Before I come to you, Ambassador Puri, that's very interesting that despite the sort of token, yes, we support an investigation. I agree with Lisa. I think the Chinese will stay out of it. And I think it's quite interesting that India has rebuilt or begun the process of rebuilding, and bettering relations with China. So that is important as well. Pakistan, in the meantime, Ambassador Puri, as you may have seen, and Lisa, I don't know if you've seen this, I'm sure you have, but nevertheless, I'll play it again. One of their ministers has made this crazy statement about nuclear weapons and also used a casteist word as a slur. I'm going to play that out. Take a look.
उन्होंने कह दिया ना कि अगर हमारा पानी बंद करेंगे तो फिर जंग के लिए तैयार हो जाएं। ये जो गोरी, शहीन, गजनवी, ये चौकों में सजाने के लिए नहीं हमने रखे हुए, ये हमने हिंदुस्तान के लिए रखे हैं। बाबा, ये जो 130 एटॉमिक हमारे पास वेपन है, वो हमने सिर्फ मॉडल बनाने के लिए नहीं रखे हुए, और आपको पता ही नहीं कि हमने पाकिस्तान के किस किस हिस्से में रखे हुए हैं। ये दुनिया भी जानती है, आप भी जानते हैं, वरना आप तो इतने मक्कार बनिए हैं कि अभी तक पाकिस्तान के ऊपर कई दफा हमलावर हो चुके होते आप।
So he uses the word banya to sort of, Ambassador Puri, insinuate that, you guys are feeble. And what they're doing with this nuclear threat is again the 90s playbook. It is trying to use this to make the world anxious about any Indian response. It's an old, cliched, formulaic attempt that instead of being aghast at their threat, the world will then scramble to say, hey, India, don't do anything very much. It's blackmail. We have shown with the surgical strikes in Balakot that it is possible to respond, below the threshold. But as everybody has said, this time the ask will be of something very different. Now, when we look at comments like this, should we just ignore them? Because their design is clearly to make the rest of the world anxious.
So, Barkha, look, there are hotheads all over the place, but I also believe that hotheads are usually egged on to do what they do. So therefore, there's no question of ignoring it. But on the other hand, what this means in all seriousness. So let's look at it like this. Look, the question of the Pakistanis wanting to reach out to the rest of the world at a time when the whole world is pointing a finger at them, there should be absolutely no question about it at all, because they think that dilutes the kind of pressures and the actions, and they are able to do all kinds of other things in this. Now, all of us would agree that the Chinese would be perhaps more circumspect. But, do remember, and let me take you back to Kargil, etc. The United States as a player tends to try and bring about what it calls balance, no matter what your own things are. That's the nature of geopolitics in the world. And that That hasn't changed, no matter what we talk about, and so on and so forth. That's what happens. And so they will try their best. But look, we are a country of substantial consequence in the world, a country of substantial interest. And first of all, I'm afraid, whether we like it or not, we need to do something which makes our population feel a little bit more reassured, etc. I'm afraid I have to echo Mr. Shashi Tharoor. That's the nature of what is happening. And thereafter, we certainly do need to take other steps, both defensive but also offensive, to try and ensure that their abilities to undertake such kind of acts are truly crimped and kept very, very minimal, or rather they are completely dissipated about it at all. But there is an immediate need, and there are long-term actions in various ways. We've been trying to do it for a long time. In fact, we are successful. The very fact that the Indian economy is doing well as a country, we become a country of consequence. They are relying on IMF bailouts one after the other. That's the real nature and the state of play, even from 2019 on. Having said all this, there are these domestic policy, both in India as well as there. But as a country, they need to be, truly finger pointed, isolated, put out in the Katara, as they say in Punjabi and Hindi. And the world needs to be brought around. It's not really a case of, hey guys, you have a dispute, let's bring a conciliation. No, let's just be very clear. There is somebody who's doing wrong, and that somebody who's doing wrong needs to get a lesson and thereafter say no more.
Absolutely. I think that's critical. This is not, oh, there will be little escalation and then the world will come scrambling to de-escalate. This is seeking a more long-term intervention. I have only a couple of minutes. I'm going to take quick last comments from all of you. I'll start with you, Ambassador Puri. One suggestion has been support Baluchistan. Support the Baluchistan movement as a response. Do you see merit in that?
Barkha, I come from a bit of an old school. Others may have various different views on all of it. Governments are best positioned to give answers. I'm far away from it, so one has no answers to the kind of data which would be required for this kind of stuff. But look, in the old days, we used to say a stable Pakistan is in our greatest interest. Today, many people would turn around and say, no, a kind of dismembered Pakistan may be in our best interest. But remember, General Saab pointed out to the Punjabis, and a disturbed Punjab on the other side can be hell as far as we are concerned. So the answers are quite complicated, quite difficult, not easy to do. And each of these particular steps has its own ramifications. This Baluchistan thing, you raised, I didn't say anything about it. But, people in the world are talking about this perhaps having been one of the factors which led to what happened. We don't know. I don't want to, jump to any of these kind of conclusions. I think people there have their own, let me say, huge dissatisfactions with the way the polity in Pakistan is structured, basically around the Punjab, etc., etc. They are being made to pay a price in Afghanistan. Look at that. They claim that, they created what has happened. And those guys say, you stay right clear of me. I don't want to have anything to do. So, a government which is foisted on the principle of an enemy, and I am the only guys who can take care of you, and fomenting terrorism. No. This is a government where we need to get the world together to say, no, guys, you may be good as a country, you're good people, whatever it is, but you need to change the way you do governance in your country and the way you interact with the rest of the world.
That is the point. There is a structural problem in Pakistan. And that problem is the Pakistan military. The Lashkar and the Jaish are manifestations of this problem. They're not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the Pakistan military. Post Zia especially, there is a Pakistan military that there is an unsoldier-like behavior. We actually saw a serving colonel of the Pakistan army do a sort of throat slit gesture at Indian protesters from the Pakistan High Commission in London. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Like, I can't imagine this. Lisa Curtis, last thoughts. Lisa Curtis.
Yeah, I think Ambassador Puri made some great comments about just how different India and Pakistan, the different directions they've gone in the last 30, 40 years. India being this huge economy, influential throughout the globe, a very close strategic partner of the United States. Pakistan, on the other hand, its economy is doing terribly. Its socioeconomic indicators are behind that of Bangladesh. So Pakistan has its own internal problems. And, I'll just repeat again, the Chief of Army Staff, Asim Munir, had no business saying Kashmir was Pakistan's jugular vein and making those kind of provocative statements that he made. And I think it looks very bad coming just a week before this horrific, communal attack that singled out Hindu men. And so I think that the United States will be paying attention, will support India, but also, is likely to want to see some restraint on both sides so that we don't see this, turning into, a conflict situation where we quickly escalate to some kind of, kinetic situation. But at the same time, India is justified in seeking retaliation, and the U.S., will back India, but at the same time will, be in discussions with India about ways to ensure that this doesn't turn into a conflict that could actually, set India back as well.
Yeah. General Helen, I'm going to give you the last word. Pakistan's army chief, his very provocative communal speech, clearly is not disconnected. In fact, it's directly connected to the religious targeting of the tourists in Pahalgam. But General Helen, I will also say to you, as you know, that the aim is to somehow divide Hindus and Muslims in India. The aim is to believe that Kashmiris, and Kashmiris have already proven them wrong. Kashmiris have come out, they have saved the lives of these tourists, they have cried for them. You have we interviewed a lady in Kerala whose father was killed, and she said, my father was killed, but I have now 2 new brothers in Kashmir. That is India. And in fact, I am going to end this program with the story of Jhantu Sheikh. He is a Muslim soldier from Bengal who gave his life for protecting Hindu tourists in a counter-terror op after Pahalgam. That is India. And I think Pakistan does not understand that, doesn't get it, and that is the problem. I'm giving you the last word, sir. A quick closing comment.
Absolutely, ma'am. Dividing people on the name of the religion is okay for political purposes, but dividing people on the name of religion in a situation like this and thinking that India will fall apart on the basis of religion, I think nothing can be more foolhardy than this. And we must understand one thing, ma'am. We were talking about the Ambassador Puri was talking about, Lisa ma'am was talking about it, how the world will align with India or align with Pakistan. We have to understand that India is the largest democracy in the world. The world today respects democracies. We are the 1/6 of the world in population. That means we are the market for anyone who is producing anything. And also Pakistan is, wherever the terrorist act happens, Pakistan's name gets connected to that. And nobody, no sensible country in the world would want a non-democratic country. Of course, Pakistan elections are there, but we all know how they are handled and how people are made prime ministers. Yeah. Nobody in the world would like a non-democratic country like Pakistan, where military control is total and they have the nuclear weapons and their statecraft is based on policy of state-sponsored terrorism. And now compare this to India's strengths. We are the 5th largest economy, going to be the 3rd largest economy. Biggest democracy, yeah. Biggest market. So alignments will happen naturally. Some people will openly support us, some people will support us, some people will keep quiet. But very few, very, very few in single digit will be the ones who would probably support Pakistan or align with Pakistan. So here, absolutely, the battle lines are drawn very clearly.
Absolutely. I think the bottom line is this: the battle lines have been drawn. This is a moment we haven't seen for many, many years. Pakistan is playing from an old playbook. India is not that India anymore. That is what I think everybody has to understand. And Kashmir is not that Kashmir anymore. Both of those things have to be internalized and understood. We will say thank you at this point to Ambassador Puri, Lisa Curtis, and of course to General Tiny Dhillon. And we leave our audience with the heroic story of Jhantu Sheikh and the stirring message from his brother, also a soldier, saying there's no Hindu Muslim in the army. It is only country first. Take a look and thank you for watching.
Indian Army Dharma? Kuno, kaure dom ache? Indian Army Dharma? हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख ईसाई सब मिले আমরা বসে আছি বর্ডারে আপনারা শান্তিতে থাকেন এটাই सबसे मेरा दायित्व जो है वो है देश की जो कि मैं बिल्कुल बॉर्डर में तैनात था जो कि भाई अचानक डेथ हुआ सर्वोच्च बलिदान दिया सीओ बोला ठीक है साहब आप पहले घर देख के आओ उसके बाद फिर आ जाओ पहले भाई को निपटा के आ जाओ उसके बाद फिर जाऊंगा मेरा सर्वोच्च हमेशा क्या मेरा देश है सबसे पहले मेरा देश है उसके बाद मेरा परिवार है
Those were very powerful words there, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate them. Thanking both General Dhillon, Lisa Curtis, and earlier to Ambassador Puri again. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.